It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
Welcome to the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and
Joe.
And
We have a guest today. It's none other than my esteemed other podcast co-host. We do a podcast together called Boys Watching Girls, where we review every episode of HBO's Girls. So I would like to welcome to the Anime Movie Podcast, Vance Tucker. Vance, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
welcome, Vance. It is so great to have you on.
Great to be here. Great to be here. Can't wait. Can't wait. Can't wait.
I'm so sad this isn't like a video podcast because all of Vance's expressions so far have tickled me so much.
I'm not even trying to be funny.
He's just saying great to be here, and he had like 6 expressions between the beginning and the end of that sentence.
All right. So what movie are we doing today?
Right, today we are doing The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which is directed by Mamoru Hosoda, who we've talked about before on this podcast.
Pronunciation game strong.
Oh, thanks. I just thought do it over the top.
Yeah.
And then you'll do it.
Yeah.
We've watched a couple of other movies from this director. He's somewhat prolific as far as sort of popular.
Got quite a few of them. And I feel like this is really the movie that inspired us to start this podcast.
Okay.
Because after we watched it the first time, we had an hours-long discussion about it.
This wasn't just hours long, Joe.
And
This went over
months.
weeks.
It's been months.
Like there'd be a pause in the conversation, and like 2 weeks later, we'd be like, actually, I've just thought of another thing. And it would spark into another like hour and a half conversation about some of the stuff about this movie.
Absolutely.
Which is part of the reason why we've brought a third party on.
So I'm just like a counselor, a couples therapist for you guys.
Oh, God.
This is really a polarizing movie for Kat and I. And I thought, who better to have on than the impartial Vance?
Yeah.
Because Vance is a man of strong opinions, but those opinions are that nothing matters, I feel.
I have opinions. I just am very even-keeled in my my approach, you know?
Okay.
Exactly. I feel like you're measured and reasonable, and maybe that's part of that. Maybe that goes into the you're not really tied to the outcome, which is, I guess, what Joe was saying about you not caring.
Yeah. You're an impartial person. I feel like you'll give. I'm just very excited to hear your thoughts on this movie, Vance.
Because we've heard each other's thoughts so much.
Yes.
And I just want to
Vance.
clarify that I do not know where you guys stand on this movie individually.
Yeah.
I just know you guys have differing opinions. I don't know which side you fall on. And I'm curious to see where I fall into that spectrum too.
Yeah. I gave Vance a little heads up. I was like, Vance, this is a very polarizing, controversial movie for Kat and I. There will be debate about this movie, and I'm very curious to see where Vance lies on it. So I feel like we should do a little bit of a like spoiler-free synopsis right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I also have some little bits of trivia.
Oh,
do you want to do trivia before synopsis or synopsis?
Let's do synopsis first.
Okay.
So the movie is about a high school age girl named Makoto who discovers through some kind of magical talisman, I guess. I don't know.
Or is it a science fiction talisman?
God, Jesus. And you son of a bitch. We were already going.
We can't even get through the first sentence without you guys.
So she discovers that she has the power to go back in time, and with that comes a lot of hijinks and some consequences that she soon finds out later on in the film.
Yeah, this is kind of a Groundhog's Day situation meets with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. Would you agree, Vance? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it has a little, it's definitely Groundhog's Day in a way. And it's, I would say this is without giving too much away, I thought this was going to be. It's more of a teen drama comedy kind of thing too, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I also thought it was a lot funnier than I thought it was going to be too. Like, I thought there was like some really funny moments in this that had me cracking up.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of laugh out loud moments, both the first and second time watching this.
The second time watching it, I was mainly remembering what made the fiery debate start in the first place and being like, oh yeah, all right, that's where I stand on this movie.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why right there.
I think the second time watching this, this is sort of a big thematic thing for me this time around. But if you're watching anything that involves time travel, it necessarily starts to have a dramatic irony.
Oh, yeah.
And like dramatic irony is when your audience knows something that the characters around you, the characters you're watching don't. But as a time traveler, you become that person who knows something that everybody else around you doesn't know because you know the future. And so that character has a sense of dramatic irony. And then there's kind of like a third level of irony where the audience also knows things that maybe the character doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like all these levels of irony, which irony can go towards the very funny or it can go towards the very tragic. And it just kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a big thing that I got from watching it this time, that certain moments are hilarious and you're like, oh wait, if I think about that differently, that's actually fucking terrible.
Yeah. There's some moments where she goes back in time and it's just like, you're being an ass right now.
Yeah, there's a part in here that there's something that seems like it got overlooked in the wrap up that I'm interested to see where you guys fall on it.
Okay.
Okay.
All
what did you think about the animation of it, Vance? You've watched a couple of anime before. I know that you and I are huge Death Note fans. Mm-hmm. What did you think about the animation in this movie?
I thought the animation was fine. I really liked. Since we're not in spoilers, there's like a scene later in the movie that I really like wrote down. Like, wow, that was great. I really like the animation style of it.
Right.
I did have an anime question animation style with the permanent sweat that all the characters have sometimes. And also,
I don't know if we've brought that up on the podcast, but it has been in conversation.
Yeah.
And the shaking eyes,
Yeah.
They love that.
Those are kind of like, they're kind of, I guess, I wouldn't say that they're tropes or cliches, but it's just their
animation style
prevalent in anime.
Yeah, trope might be the word for it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's all these sort of physicalities of emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
The sweating is the physical production of something that's showing that you're experiencing something emotionally, and the shaking eyes usually very, very similar.
The shaking eyes, and then like the red grill marks under the eyes that's supposed to signify blushing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so unlike actual blushing. It's weird.
Well, no, I mean it's grill marks. It looks like somebody put it like a hamburger. Like flame grilled Whopper on it.
All right, let's get into some trivia time stuff.
Oh, trivia.
Yeah. So this is based on a book from 1965, which I found very interesting.
Oh, okay.
And Hosoda wasn't born until 1967. So this book actually came out 2 years before he was even born.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been adapted 11 times.
Really?
And this is the only adaptation that is not a direct adaptation. And some people even say that it might be a sequel rather than an adaptation.
I think I read that somewhere too, because there are some hints of like a previously in the movie. There's like hints of like a previous time travel adventure kind of thing going on.
And there was a live action movie that came out in 1983 in Japan that got very popular. But we can go into the spoiler section later to talk about some of the differences between that and this. But this was written by oh God, you guys, you have to bear with me for a second.
Go for it.
Yasutaka Tsutsui.
All right. We'll go with it.
I think I did okay.
Yeah. Me and Vance are just like shrugging our shoulders. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
It's about as good an attempt as either of us could have mustered.
The same author, mostly known for like science fiction stuff, also wrote Paprika as a book.
Okay.
Which came out as a movie the same year by a different director, Satoshi Kon, which we're both a fan of.
Wow, I did not know that.
Fascinating, right? Oh no, I've marked on my notes that that's a spoiler trivia fact. Can't say that. Right. So that's got a 7.7 on IMDb, 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, but 90% for audience. Initially, this opened in just a couple of theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a couple. In industry terms, that means like maybe a few hundred, maybe a couple thousand.
Yeah.
But not a huge release. But apparently people are so into seeing this film that some people stood in the theater rather than sitting down in order to get in to watch this movie. So by popular demand, it got a wider release, and it also entered in a couple of film festivals. But it doesn't even make the top 50 list for highest grossing anime films, both either in Japan or in the US or worldwide.
That's interesting because I know that on lists of great anime movies, this one's on it a lot. And I've seen this movie referenced quite a bit. It's referenced in Steins Gate, which is another time travel thing that Vance actually hated.
Yeah, this is my Girl Who Leapt Through Time movie with Joe. The show. Yeah. I love Death Note. He loves Death Note. I do not like Steins Gate. I gave it enough of a chance. I watched 2 seasons worth before I.
No, you did not. There's only one.
Is it just one season? It felt like 2 seasons.
It's 24 episodes.
Okay.
You got through, I think, 12 or something.
That's half. Well, I got through half. I got through half.
Yeah. All right, Vance.
This brought up a lot of the same feelings that Steins Gate brought up for me, but I know that, Joe, you love it, and I don't think it brought up the same feelings for you.
No, there's inherently in time travel movies, there is just a feeling of dread when all the stuff kind of unravels and you start to see the consequences of your actions and how when you go back in time, there's all these ripple effects and it can change how the world is. So that's really what affected me a lot in Steins Gate, but I feel like it's a lot more significant in Steins Gate than it is in this.
It hits harder for you with Steins Gate?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, that doesn't mean to say that's not to say that this doesn't hit hard with you seeing her kind of unraveling both mental state and how the world around her is going. And I don't know. I definitely like Steins Gate better than this, but.
And I think to Vance's point about this being more like a teen drama, that it really pulls in some of that coming of age stuff, because there's some themes of not really knowing how to deal with difficult conversations or complicated emotions, not knowing how to talk about them, a lack of emotional intelligence, which I think comes up a lot in coming of age stories as well, which you kind of don't have in something like Steins Gate.
Yeah.
And maybe
that's why Vance hates it.
Well,
so
I think Joe just couldn't relate to a teenage girl time traveling and could relate to a psychotic scientist.
Okay, Vance. All right, Vance. Yeah, you're right. I can relate to a man more than a teenage girl. I'm sorry.
Oh, I feel like I'm going to enjoy this.
Overall, though, Vance, how amped are you on this movie? How amped are you to talk about it in the spoiler section? And how amped are you?
I gotta say, it started out a little. It took a while for me to really get into, and then once it started picking up steam, right in the halfway mark, I felt like I was into it then, and I enjoyed it. I think it finished strong as it could, and there's still some questions and issues, but
sure.
I
will say overall I enjoyed it. It's super light. Yeah,
I feel like I'm pretty amped about it. I will echo Vance's sentiment that there are some questions that need to be answered about this movie that I have very strong opinions on.
Yeah.
And you'll hear them in the spoiler section. Like Vance said, it's really light. I think it's funny at a lot of parts. And I will say that this is what I said when we first watched it, and I will say it again because this is exactly how I felt last night when we were watching it again. I loved the first 85% of this movie, and then the last 15% of it, I was like, what the hell happened?
Joe, Vance, I am so fucking amped about this. And this is the first time I've had that level of enthusiasm about my amp. I'm usually like, I'm like a medium level of amp. I'm like, you know what, I'm pretty amped. But this time I am so amped, you guys.
I think you're more amped for the conversation that's about to happen than the actual movie.
You're wrong.
Okay. All right.
I am amped about both of these things. And I think one thing that I love about this movie is its breadth, because both of you mentioned that it's light, but I also think it kind of hits on some really, really heavy topics.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So I love the sort of scale or breadth of this film where it goes from these very light, laugh out loud, relatable moments to these totally, I can't imagine being in that situation. That's so heavy. That's so crazy to me. And I love the way it blends those two things, and it doesn't feel like it swings really hard like a pendulum. Like it eases you between those moments, which I think is pretty impressive. So yeah, I'm not as amped to hear some of the arguments I've already heard at length from Joe about this movie. However, I'm totally amped to have Vance on as a guest and totally amped for everything else about this.
All right.
Shall we get to spoilers?
Let's get to spoilers.
They wouldn't spoil this, right? Oh, God, they can't spoil this. Right? Don't spoil
Spoiler talk, anime movie podcast spoiler talk. The gloves are off now. Before we get into our feelings about this, Vance, you said that you had there's some questions that you had about the movie. What were some of your things that you were like, I need more clarification on this?
Well, I'm really curious about where the big riff of you guys.
Yeah.
Because I have thoughts throughout the whole movie. I kind of want to know the big riff that you guys have on this movie.
Sure.
And then
here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if we should make our way there.
Okay, yeah.
I'm wondering if I don't know if that we should do an entire synopsis, but maybe we talk by character.
Okay, yeah.
And then maybe talk about all of the reasons why she decides to time leap.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we get into the big thing.
Okay. Some keys for you, everybody. Yeah. So once Mako, she's called Mako.
Makoto?
Yeah, Makoto.
Do they call her Kono at some point too?
No, they call her Mako as a nickname, I think, throughout the movie.
I felt like the teacher called her Kono before he dropped the
yeah, that's her last name.
Okay.
Makoto Kono.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me about 2/4 of the way through the movie before I figured out anybody's name.
I'm sorry, by 2/4, do you mean 1/2?
I wanted to say 2/3 and I got caught in the middle. 3/6 of the way through.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she starts to use, when she discovers that she has the power to time leap and go back in time, she starts using it on pretty frivolous things that you'd expect a teenager.
The frivolity.
Yeah. She goes back in time to make sure she doesn't wake up late for school. She goes back to make sure that
she uses it to extend a karaoke session.
Yeah, and
so she can keep singing.
And to pass a pop quiz and to have the dinner that she wanted that they had 2 nights ago.
Avoid difficult conversations.
And her method of time travel is so bonkers to me, and it makes absolutely no sense.
I'm kind of with you on that, especially with the karaoke scene. Because I don't understand where she's running to. She has to leap, literally jump in the air.
She has to literally jump.
Well, at least she thinks she needs to do this.
Well, yeah.
Okay. We don't know. But there's no proof that she doesn't.
Or that she does. Yeah. There's no rule book that comes with.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's more proof that she has to leap than not leap. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that. Yeah.
And then she just somehow keeps leaving the karaoke session. And then rolling in. And every time they go, weren't you just right here? And
I love how that one is Chiaki. Chiaki goes how did you fall like that?
Yeah.
How does anyone fall like that? I don't even understand.
And wouldn't she have to sing the same song over and over?
I don't know why she wouldn't be able to sing different songs, but it's shown that I think it's Chiaki, the red-haired dude, he sings the same song over and over, and it's time waits for no one.
Yeah.
Time waits for no one. Not even your mom or your son. That's the truth.
Yeah.
But her jumping and then just rolling out of thin air into existence and then slamming her head, like, where is she coming from? Did she just appear out of thin air? And when she rolls, she is smashing her head onto hard objects.
I kind of love how they let the characters react to that.
Yeah.
You know, the characters are like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, there are characters that are like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
When they react to it, it made me really question what happens to the version of her that's actually there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, were she just sitting there? She magically disappeared and just rolled in through the door, and you're like, wait, what? And they're like, it's fine. Like, a big question is when she goes back because she wants dinner from 2 nights ago, right?
Oh yeah.
How does she have to like live the rest, or does she jump forward again after she eats?
No, I think she has to live all of that through again.
No, because when she's talking to Auntie Witch, her aunt, who somehow knows a lot about time travel, which we'll get to, which is a theory that is going on later.
Okay.
She tells her aunt that she can go forward and backwards however much she wants.
Oh, did she say that?
Yeah. She's like, I can jump back and forth and it doesn't matter. And then she's like, ha 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 ha.
I assumed that she was living through that entire time, and then that we were just cutting in the magic of movie editing to another place so we don't have to relive that as the audience. That's what I was assuming, but
I mean, it could be, but she does say like, I can jump back and forth.
Right.
Well, there's also the issue of the very first time she like knowingly time leaps into that river and there's kids next to her like throwing rocks. They say that when she jumps, she disappeared for a second.
And then she came back, yeah.
So they're like, did you see the kids that are next to her? Like, did you see that girl? She disappeared when she jumped. And that would be very problematic because she's jumping in front of people like nonstop. So eventually someone's going to be like, what the fuck is up with you jumping and disappearing and then rolling, and where have you been?
That kind of makes sense with something that happened earlier when she goes back for the pudding, which is, I thought the whole movie was going to be about pudding for a while. Because she's really, like, a girl thinks she's going to jump out of a window because she ate her pudding. Like, it gets real serious.
That's true, yeah.
But she goes back and she gets it, and she's at the beaded curtains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you can't have my pudding. And then they look, and then she's gone. And then she comes back to the leaping part. So it kind of she goes back to where she started. She can change it and then just kind of go back, it seems.
But if she does that, wouldn't the future change? And there could, I mean, butterfly effect and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's tough with time stuff.
It is tough with time stuff. I think if you're jumping back and forth that often, there might be realistically more confusion about what happened and where you're at. And she does bring up some confusion at some point about like, oh, wait, that didn't happen in like this timeline that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that they do acknowledge that. If you were to acknowledge it to the extent that it would need to be acknowledged in order for everything to make sense and there be zero plot holes, this would be unwatchable.
Yeah, this would be like a 6-hour movie, number one.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, the major thing is that she first discovers that she can do this during a near-death experience. Mm-hmm. And that is also true in the novel, but it's a very different near-death experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So for this one, she finds out that the brakes on her bike aren't working, and she runs into one of those barriers for a train, and the train is coming, and she hits the barrier. She goes flying over the handlebars, and then this train is coming, and then you get the impression on that last frame where she's in the air and the train is about to hit her, like, this girl's gonna die.
Yeah.
And then suddenly she's in a different time period. And I think that's the first thing that gives her the idea, like, I need to be in the air somehow while this is happening for some reason. Like, I think that's how this works. And of course, this comes up again, that same event, which is marked by the clock striking a certain time and a couple of other events happening leading up. I can see the way Joe's looking at me, and I know why he's looking at me that way.
Yeah, because Vance, I don't know if you noticed this, but when the clock is striking, there's a group of little, like, elf doll men that hit the things.
Oh, yeah, I noticed it because they pointed out, like, 7 times. So, yeah.
Kat finds those things utterly terrifying.
Really?
I hate them so much.
She was like, when it first popped up, she literally went, I hate them. Like in a deadpan tone, I was like, what? And she was like, those things are so horrifying and terrifying looking. And I was like, those cute little elf things?
Because they look like little people that are with... What freaks you out about them?
I think it's... I don't really like dolls in general, but I think that there's something very unsettling about the fact that they're CGI versus some of the more hand-drawn looking things of the rest of the animation. So the way they move is creepy, and they're dolls in the first place, which is creepy. And they're also like harbingers of death. Like they strike the clock when somebody's about to die. Like what isn't creepy about those things?
I'll give you the harbinger of death.
Wait, is that like a national thing, or just you mean just in this movie?
Just in this movie, yeah.
Like any time that those dolls appear, someone's about to die.
That's actually the national symbol of death in Japan. Our tiny, colorful gnomes.
Well, according fact for you.
According to this movie, July 13th is Happy Day in Japan.
Nice day.
Nice
or
day.
whatever.
That out. Yeah.
I wanted to ask Vance, because I think that this is what he was kind of talking about before in the spoiler-free. Did you like when she first falls onto the, I guess, time-traveling walnut-looking thing, and she has that like weird trippy experience where she's seeing all of time?
I really wish I would have paid more attention to that trippy time thing, because my brain just, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, here comes like some random visuals that might not be anything, and I kind of zoned out for a minute, and then like she came out and she was like, that was crazy, and I was like, maybe there's something in there I should have seen, but I just knew like she fell on. I thought she was just going through that like vortex of time travel, so I just kind of didn't pay attention to what the exact stuff was in there.
I think this time I noticed, and I actually said it out loud to Joe, where I was like, oh my god, it looks like a painting.
Yeah.
Because initially the animation looks very, very much like a painting, and you're going through kind of like
it's like wild horses running.
Yeah, it's kind of like prehistoric animals. You have a couple of moments that feel like you're in a natural history exhibit, but it's moving and it's a painting. And then you see like kind of tribes people, I guess. And then it goes very digital. So you see a lot of like straight lines and what you imagine could be created by ones and zeros, which is kind of like a very simplistic, broad spectrum of what people consider quote unquote primitive versus quote unquote advanced.
Yeah. When she finally gets, after going through all of like the oil painting history looking stuff, and she gets to, it looks like, I'll describe it as like a time dome, because there's just like these gears everywhere, which gears are like symbolic of, grandfather clocks. There's gears everywhere in those. And then the red, the black lines with the red numbers on it, like with the time going backwards and forwards and everything. When she gets to there, and then she finally falls out of it and lands wherever she lands, I can't really quite remember. I thought it was a cool sequence. And I had no idea what the fuck was going on. The first time I saw it, I was like, what is this? She is tripping balls, dude.
I'm still laughing at grandfather clocks. There's gears everywhere in those.
There are.
I know. It's just a great way to describe a grandfather clock.
Dude, in time travel stuff, there's a lot of gears. Like even Steins Gate. I know Vance hates Steins Gate, but
I mean, and
sorry
even
keep bringing it up, Vance. But
even analog watches have a lot of gears and things. So it's definitely indicative of
get out of here
analog clocks. I totally agree.
I figured she was going through some type of time thing. I was waiting for me. I guess I like kind of was zoning out until I figured out where she was going to end up afterwards. I felt like she was going to be in a whole different place. And then I think she ends up right back in the same room, though, right?
Yeah, I think she ends up waking up earlier on that day again or something.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to her in the room because the books fall down onto her face, because she kind of goes up in the air because she's a total klutz in every way possible. Yep. And she throws, the books kind of go up into the air, then she does the trippy time thing, and then she comes back, she falls on the ground, and all the books kind of fall on her face. And I'm not quite sure what happens right after that, but I think she gets on her bike and then almost has that near the death experience.
Yeah, she gets up and she sees someone in the room.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And they can't find out who it is. And at the end, don't they say it was
Chiaki?
Yeah. Did you guys think it was going to be her that was in the room? Like in a later scene when the girl opens the door? I was like, this is...
I did not.
I was like, this is classic time travel stuff. And like the girl opens, she's like, oh, it's just the books that I brought up here for you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be like her herself. But I don't know.
That's a good thought. I didn't think of that.
That's terribly clever.
Yeah.
I mean, the sound that both Joe and I made at the exact same time...
It should signify that we did not think
of that.
I was like, oh, you guys did think of that. You're shocked that someone else thought of it because you thought you two were the only ones.
No, we were just like, we did.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Never even came up.
I mean, it's been done. I just was like thinking time travel trope type stuff, and like you don't see someone in the room, and then later you're like, oh, that was me. But no, it's fine the way they did it. I'm not.
No, you get a gold star.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. And that's why we have Vance on the show.
Exactly. Today. I think this is a really good moment to give a couple of my spoiler trivia facts.
Oh, spoiler trivia. Okay.
Yeah. Since we're talking about the weird walnut, the time walnut.
Yeah.
Thing.
It looks like a nut.
Yeah.
It looks like a walnut.
It totally looks like a walnut in a shell.
Vance, back me up. It looks like.
Yeah, is that the big debate?
That'd be so stupid.
We've been talking for 10
That'd be
hours
so
about
dumb.
Or not.
Right. The thing
Spoiler
that definitely
trivia.
looks like a walnut.
Yes.
It was originally not a walnut thing at all.
Is this in the novel?
In the novel.
Okay.
Yeah, in the 1965 novel. It was actually just sort of a lavender scent that she smells.
Okay.
And
I'm glad that was a nut in this. That would have been real stupid.
Yeah, and the idea is that it was like an airborne drug. That's a time-traveling drug that happens to smell like lavender.
Huh.
That's easier to explain in a book than in a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, which kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you find out the year that the time traveler who brought that drug to that time period is from, and it's like 2660.
Dang, all right.
Yeah, a time so far into the future that baseball no longer exists.
Yeah, I love that. I love when people go like all out on like, you know, because there's been so many 80s movies that were like in the far distant future of the year 2000.
I know.
And then like the year 2000 comes, they're like, this future's not like this at all. I love it when they take a leap and they're like, in the year 450,000.
Yeah, I mean, like one of our first episodes is talking about Akira, which is set in the year 2019, which is now last year.
Yeah.
Which probably seemed really far away in the 1980s.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, and they were close.
Like,
they were close to Akira.
Yeah, real close. Yeah, Olympics also canceled this year.
Any more spoiler trivia?
Yeah, and it has to do with that lavender scent. So when the time travel, I know we haven't really brought him up yet, which is why I'm just calling him the time traveler right now, which is weird. I don't want to spoil the part in the spoilers. But originally when the time traveler decides to go back to his time, he wipes everybody's memory of his existence. So the girl falls in love with him, but he goes back and she can't remember anything about him except when she smells lavender. She has a vague memory of somebody telling her that they're going to see her again.
Okay.
That's very romantic.
And that's how it
really
is,
romantic,
right?
a little creepy.
A little creepy.
Could you imagine like smelling something and be like, I know I've smelled this and I know that somebody told me about this.
That happens to people all the time.
It's our number one memory sense is smell.
Exactly. Thank you, Vance.
No, but I'm saying you remember where you
you get like
know it from.
Not at all.
No, you get like vague smells that remind you of something.
Well, I guess I just have a better memory than both of you because I remember everything.
Oh, I forgot you're a savant.
I'm a savant. I wanted to go a little bit further on in the synopsis. So after Makoto is using the time leaps very frivolously, there's a moment where Chiaki asks Makoto out and she wants to avoid this conversation like the plague. And so she goes back in time, I think it's like 3 or 4 times, to try and avoid having that conversation where Chiaki's asking her out because she just like doesn't want to have that conversation.
And this I found so funny.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed this scene a lot. This like sequence montage or whatever. I definitely had to question, why does she keep hopping on the bike?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does take her several times. I think it's the fourth time where she goes, I don't want to get on the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes on the bike 3 times. The third time was especially hilarious because he starts to get to that conversation where he's going to ask her out. And she's like, no, don't you want to talk about my sister? My sister's really stupid and she's dumb. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, my sister, she's a big idiot. And he's like, anyway, you want to go out? And she's like, fuck.
Yeah, they call her dumb a lot in this too. Like they call her idiot and stuff. Like not just sister, but the main character.
Yeah. Right after she avoids answering Chiaki, when she goes back in time a bunch of times, she visits her Auntie Witch, and she talks to her about it and being like, yeah, this guy asked me out and I kept going back in time. And this is where the crux of the film starts to unravel, where Auntie Witch tells her, do you think that your good fortune gives other people bad luck? And that's exactly what happens with this guy with the home ec accident, and then her friend that gets hit with the somehow devastating weapon that is a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
They're heavy. They're heavy.
Yeah.
I feel like they're not.
No,
I mean, if you got hit
like with... the real ones that are like in, if you get hit with that.
Really?
Yeah.
But it was empty.
It's even if it was even if it was 10 pounds, imagine being hit with a 10-pound kettlebell that somebody threw. It would hurt.
It did take that guy like a whole 2 minutes to hoist it above his head and chuck it.
I don't know if it would be that hard to lift up. Like that was like, I was like, what is this thing made out of? Like,
And I think the ultimate thing in this movie about somebody else suffering based on you going back in time and making something better for yourself, of course, is Kosuke taking the girl. Do we learn her name? I can't remember.
We do, but it's not important.
Okay. But she kind of sets them up so that they end up going out, and he's taking her home and borrows Makoto's bike. And then he ends up in the accident with this girl on the back of his bike. So they're about to get hit by the train. But she's been so frivolous with all of her time leaps that now she is out of leaps and she can't save them. And then this is the first point of the film where I was like, hold on, how is this happening? Because very, very cool visually, very, very cool for a lot of reasons. But Chiaki appears and makes all time stop. And there is no explanation for how he's able to do that because he only has one time leap left. And the whole idea of freezing time hasn't been brought up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things in this film aren't totally explained. And I like that. I like that there's a lot to talk about, a lot to theorize about. But this one, I'm just like, really?
For me, we have to go back a little bit before that.
All right.
One, when they introduced the time counter on her arm, that seems to come out of nowhere. And I don't know what the number started with and why it started at the number it started with.
I was trying to figure out what number it started
It seemed like it looked like 60. It looked like 60, I think, but I'm not sure.
She said 90.
Okay.
The first time you see it, she says 90. So upside down, that would be 6. But she uses the time leap, I think, more than 6 times from that point.
She used it like 10 times at karaoke.
Yeah.
I know, right?
She did 10 hours of karaoke at an hour.
I mean, some things in this, it kind of comes in as like a script device where it's like, all right, we're now going to add a ticking clock.
Yeah.
Like
literally.
Auntie exposition, really. Like she comes in and she's like, oh yeah, you did a time leap. Cool. I used to do those. I'm like, wait, what?
Right? Yeah. And this is something that I was thinking about as well, was her saying that she was like, that happens to a lot of girls. And I was like, does it?
Yeah. Was she joking? Because she laughs at the end, but then there's a shot where they push into the painting of her with the photo of her with her husband who passed away or something.
Yes. Guys, I have a theory.
Go for it.
Oh boy, here we go.
Okay. My theory is Chiaki came back to this time to see Auntie Witch because he dated her back in the day when she was a teenager and she ended up with time leaping abilities.
Yeah, that's the theory that on Reddit about this movie.
Oh, really?
Least. Yeah.
Because I thought that last time I was looking at that picture that it zooms into and I was like, he's in that picture, I bet. But there's not a person with red hair, at least.
Yeah, the two people in it, like the one guy that would look like him has brown hair, and the other guy's too short to be him.
Right.
That photo just is so weird because it pushes in, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna get some information."
So long. Right.
And then you're like, "I don't know what I'm looking at."
Yeah.
Yeah, because she explains like she used to be able to time travel. Like she explains that early on in the movie, and then she talks about how there was a guy that she fell in love with, and he went away, but he told her to like wait for him or something, or like it was something like that where he's like, I'll come back for you. That's what he said. I'll come back for you. And then he never did. And it kind of echoes what Chiaki says to Makoto in the end of the movie. And we're getting dangerously close to the extremely large debate that we're about to have.
Okay, is there anything lost in translation with anti-witch? Is that something, or is that just
the name?
Really, what she's called?
Well, I mean, Makoto does say that she calls her a witch because she can predict the future or something, or she knows stuff about stuff.
She has some awful boy dating advice that she gives her. Where she's like, date him. If it doesn't work out, it'll go back to normal. Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, no, that does not go back to normal.
Yeah. I wrote down some things that bothered me. And one of them was, I wrote, Anti-Witch says a lot of teenage girls experience time leaping. Confusing, unnecessary, goes nowhere. Unless dudes coming back often find teenage girls to do this with? Or same dude came to her, ? And the painting thing is related, which is why she's restoring it, ?
This is the theory on Reddit. Double spoiler alert. Chiaki.
We've been in spoilers for like
I know.
Yeah, but now we're spoiling
now
the
we're
spoilers.
Double spoiler. Because for some reason we weren't spoiling this. But Chiaki is the time traveler. He's from the future. He's come back to this time with his time leap for a reason. Mm-hmm. And the theory is that he went back in time to tell Anti-Witch to restore that painting, and he went back in time again to convince Makoto to also take care of that painting, because that he wants it to keep going back in time to do this to different girls to make sure that that painting makes it to his time.
Yeah.
And now I feel like is the time where we need
I'm going to say I don't buy that theory.
We need to address the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. So Chiaki is the time traveler from the future, a dystopian future where there's no baseball, there's no happiness. He didn't know how to ride a bike until he came back in time, and he just loved being in this time period with Makoto and
These are all the
Kosuke.
big markers of a dystopia.
So
I think war and famine was also mentioned.
I would argue that they don't have baseball now because the way they play it is
So he goes back in time, and this is during the period where Chiaki stops time, which is unexplained. We have no idea how he does that. He explains to Makoto that he came back to this time period to see the painting that Anti-Witch is restoring, and for no other reason.
And he just says, because he likes it.
And she asks him, she's like, well, what's so significant about this painting? He avoids the question.
He's very avoidant with a lot of questions.
And that was my major question is, what's up with this painting? And also, what a fucking useless use of time travel.
So the big debate that we keep going back and forth on is basically Joe does not buy or accept that anyone would ever go back in time to see a painting. And if that's why they were going back in time, that it was a really stupid way to use time travel and that nobody would ever do it.
Especially if you're coming from this war-torn dystopian world. I believe that if you're coming from that and you have this time travel power, you should go back, try to fix the future. Vance, where do you weigh in on this?
All right. Well, there's a caveat in the way of you say like no one would ever do this.
Exactly.
Wait. But I will say there are people that.
Vance just got a glimpse of our like fucking fists coming up.
I was gonna say somebody would do that, maybe. Okay, but I will say his reasoning of coming back to see a painting that has yet to be restored, and also the fact that he just stuck around because he enjoyed playing 3-person baseball catch. and somehow not only that, he somehow registered for school, because I wrote this down, like he somehow registered and now goes to a high school.
Like, how old is he?
Yeah, where does he live?
Yeah, I'm confused by all of that. I feel like they've been hanging out for at least over a year, because they say last summer we did something. So he's been there a year at least. During that time, he also had the 90 or 60 time travels?
Yeah, we don't know how many times
because he only has one. Because he only has one left.
Yeah,
but we don't know what he did with those.
Well, the other question I had is like, so he knows that Makoto is time leaping. How does he know?
He starts to figure it out.
But how?
I mean, if he sees her roll into rooms and things, and he knows that the leaping or whatever is how you do it.
How cool would it be to see him roll into a room?
Yeah,
it would have been so
awesome.
cool to see him roll into a room and be like, oh, he can time travel. Like if that was the actual way to find out he was a time traveler. Not, how do we find out that he's a time traveler? Is it just told to us?
He literally calls her on the phone and he's like, have you been time leaping? And she's like, huh? And then that's when Kosuke and the girl,
away from that conversation.
Yeah, she leaps.
She time leaps away from it.
Yeah, she leaps away from that conversation, which is her last time leap. And then Kosuke and his new girlfriend get hit by the train. Chiaki time leaps back to save Kosuke and the girl, but he also freezes time to explain to Makoto that he is from the future and he came to look at a painting because he likes it and he thinks it's really beautiful, and that's the only reason he came back in time.
I think I can explain the time freezing thing, actually.
Oh,
this will be interesting.
But I will say, I want to say before that, I did like the tension of the brakeless bike and the race to get there.
Yeah.
So good.
And then the mislead of like them not being there.
Yes.
And then the later, oh, they are there twist. Like I thought that whole tension scene and the music, I thought that played perfectly.
Yeah.
Maybe the freezing of time is because they both have time leap abilities or had it. So when he used this as the last one, you use it to go back, but you don't have to go back. You know how we were talking about that time when you go back in time to where you go to now and what happens between it? Yeah. Maybe instead of just zipping back, he just kind of stayed there and hung out with her in that little
maybe if
limbo.
there's like two time leapers that they can kind of hang out in a limbo for a second.
Yeah, or at least she can see him because she has time leap before, you know? Like two time leapers could see each other passing in that middle. That's just a random, just based off what we're talking about.
I like it.
Yeah.
I will concede that I could see, to Vance's point, that someone would go back in time to look at a painting.
What? You've never conceded that to me.
I did, but I say that it is stupid and a waste of a superpower. It is really dumb to do, especially if you're coming from this horrible, horrible future where I feel like you could go back and try to change that future by, you know, specific actions that you could do. Like, I don't know, maybe you could try to like kill some leader. My example, which was
I haven't been able to talk about this at all
which
yet.
Kat found fucking really ridiculous and stupid. She asked me like, all right, Joe, you have one time leap and you're to go back in time right now and try to fix coronavirus. What would you do? And I said,
oh boy, am I gonna have to just take the headphones off and walk away? It's gonna. Can a podcast get canceled while it's recording?
We just got to beep. All right, so Vance left, and we'll try and continue this. We'll try and wrap this up.
What I said was I'd go back in time. I'd go to China and I'd buy all of the bats in the Wuhan wet market.
annoyed at me. I was like, where would you find the money to buy all those bats? Where would you find a bag big enough to put the bats into?
Well, that's nothing compared to my attempt at saving the world from coronavirus.
And then he got so mad at me. He just went, Kat, at least I tried.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like this guy didn't even fucking try to save his dystopian future. He went back to look at a painting.
You wouldn't just get a sample of COVID from present and take it back to scientists of the past and have them start working on a vaccine immediately? You would instead
buy all the bats.
You would go there and then only to find out that it's not caused by bats when you go back to the future.
But here's the thing, Vance, is there is
you're not in charge of the dystopian time. You're not getting a walnut. You do not get a walnut.
Here's the thing, Vance. There's honor in the attempt, is my point.
Okay.
There's honor in the attempt. It's like with Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. All right?
Is this a power or is it just like a vacation tool?
It's an absolute power.
She doesn't know it's a power.
She did it to save fucking people's lives, or he did at least. He did it to save Kosuke and the girl's life. He didn't try to save people's lives from his dystopian future. He didn't try to buy all the bats.
You know who could have saved those lives? All those onlookers who just watched the bikes go in. I saw that and I'm like, a little girl is driving, a teenage girl is screaming as her bike careens towards an oncoming train, and no one grabs her.
Yeah.
Or like, no, she didn't. Neither of them had the thought process to like just bail,
turn, skid.
Yeah.
I just want to say that in our previous conversations, you never conceded to me that somebody would go back to look at a painting.
No, I believe that they would because you said that you would, and I just think it's dumb.
I know that then you went away, because I went to some other people and I was like, so here's what some other people have said, and you were like, I can't believe that. And you're like, but also I'm gonna have to think about this.
No, it's like, I can believe that people would do it, but I'm also like, I can't believe it because there's so much better uses for it. You know,
God, that makes me feel better because when you were just like, no, nobody would do that. I was like, no, they definitely would. I mean, I even wrote down this figure in case you did argue that, which was the highest price that a painting is ever sold for, which was attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, and it's the Salvator Mundi. And it's sold for $450.3 million. So if you can value that...
That's a waste of money.
Yes.
You're not going back to steal the painting and then sell it. You're going back to look at it in a museum.
Yeah.
That's fucking dumb.
But in that case, that's somebody wanting that on their wall or wanting to look at it. I'm just saying that like the amount of money that people put onto a painting equates to the value people put on art.
Yeah. Value is what people pay.
I think you could definitely get historians or, going back and wanting to say, see Machu Picchu, like when it was actually intact before it got destroyed, or going back to the pyramids and seeing, I could see how that could be of huge value to people. Some people would go back and see a musician in concert. And I think in some ways it's the least morally complicated way to use time travel. Because if you walk into a museum and you go and you're just like, I just need to see this painting that got destroyed. Like of course there's butterfly effect. But of all of the ways you can use it, you're also potentially affecting things the least you possibly could.
Yeah, except for that Chiaki was there for at least a whole summer.
Oh, yeah,
There's
and he's probably
for
sure.
Stuff.
Absolutely.
The thing, I think the issue, and I'm happy that you guys could come to this mediation due to my counseling.
Yes, thank you.
You
we
guys
appreciate
aren't
it.
middle one. I think the issue, especially for you, Joe, it comes from that being the big reveal is so underwhelming. It's underwhelming to the point where when Auntie Witch is talking about the painting, she's like, you look at it and it calms everything down, but I don't know how much it's worth. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Like she's like so blasé about this painting, and the painting is so an afterthought for everything.
Yeah.
That when he says that, and it doesn't have any like, even when he talked about it, he's like, I kind of like the painting. He doesn't say like it has no significance like on his like he didn't want like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have any significance where you go like, oh, that's why you're here.
Right.
Like if he came back to make sure she got the time thing so that she wouldn't die from this because she is this future parent. Like that's more plotty, but it gives you some like it gives you something to hang on to, but this gives you like nothing really.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like, I mean, to your point earlier, Vance, when you were saying like, I don't buy that he would just come here to play baseball, or that he might have come here for a different reason, but why would he stay here to play baseball? To be fair, if you come from a war-torn future and everything is fucking terrible, you might really enjoy being somewhere where there were people that you liked very much, that you connected with. You were enjoying it. It was just nice.
Yeah, or you might try to change that future that you came from to make sure that future is nice.
Did he say it was war-torn, or did he just say he didn't have bikes in baseball? Like, how much do we know about this future that he came from?
It is suggested that there's
it's a dystopia.
It's a dystopia.
Like it's not a good place.
Now, I did read a theory somewhere that the painting came from the future and that he brought it back to Auntie Witch in the past and got her to hide it and hold on to it until he came back for it for some reason, which was vaguely interesting. I know that there were some other theories about the fact that the painting held the recipe for the design or explanation for how time travel works.
Yeah, like it's like the recipe for the time travel walnuts.
Yes, which kind of makes more sense in the sort of original story where it's supposed to be a herbal mixture and it's like a drug that causes you to time travel. It kind of makes more sense that there's a quote unquote recipe to make it happen rather than a recipe for a walnut.
Yeah, I wish if that's the case, I kind of want Auntie Witch to have a little more integration into the movie. Like, why couldn't she just be a teacher at the school at least? And that would at least tie them together why he stays in school. Or, I don't know. It just seems like she's like, because the reason she goes to see her that day is because the mom's like, bring her these peaches or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, and she's like, I hope she's getting married sometime soon. Which, there's a lot of random lines
that are
just
so
set off.
There's so
and animation
many.
does that,
yeah.
Just like these throwaway lines.
Yeah, and I kind of, the first time I was watching this, I was just like, I don't know what these scenes are about.
Yeah.
I felt like it was just kind of trying to break up the constant back and forth of the time travel stuff to give you a moment of consistency or coherence where here's this neutral space we keep coming back to that has nothing to do with her trying to solve a problem or leaping back and forth, whatever. And so I didn't pay very much attention to it. And then at the end, and after talking about it a lot, I was like, I feel like I need to pay way more attention to what's going on with that. And some of the things that she says sound kind of coded, and you know, a lot of the avoidance that Chiaki shows with the way he answers questions. There's a lot of questions he specifically doesn't answer, or he gives these really unsatisfying answers, which makes me feel like it's leaving it open to create theories. Like it's inviting the audience to theorize heavily about what's going on here.
Yeah, but I feel like that's a cop-out for writing a movie.
You think it's lazy?
That's like super lazy. It's like,
I feel like it's fine. It works in one way. Like you can't have it both ways, and I feel like this movie wants to have it both ways.
Okay.
Where it wants to explain. Like I don't need to know a reason why he came back. He could just say, "I came from another time. My time is different. I should have left, but I stayed here." If he says that, you're like, "Oh, okay, I see why you stuck around."
Yeah.
But then when you say it's specifically about this one thing that we saw once, then it's like too much information. It's like too much information there, you know?
Do you think it would have been better if he had not mentioned the painting at all, and he was like, I was just having a lot of fun playing baseball with you guys, but like I was supposed to.
And you have this. You have him. If you even like, this is kind of rewriting it a little bit, but if you have him having lost his time travel thing, like it was lost in that lab for like a year, and he didn't know where he left it, and he couldn't travel forward anymore. Now he has a debate where she has it, and now he's like, now that you've given it to me, now I can go, and I'm supposed to go, because he's supposed to erase everyone's memory. It seems like.
Yeah, in the original he did, but in this one he didn't, because even Kosuke and she talk about it after. It's like, I can't believe he didn't even say goodbye to you.
Yeah.
Like, did he transfer schools?
Doesn't he mention it though? Doesn't he mention it though when he's like freezing time, that he has to like go, and like no one's supposed to know about this time travel stuff?
Yeah, no one's supposed to know about the time traveling, so he has to disappear is what he says.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Plus, I mean, this is a thing that I brought up to you, Kat, at least before, is we also don't know how many times he has leapt back in time to where he only has one left. So I will also concede that perhaps he has been trying to change his dystopian future, and like now he's just like sick of trying to do that, and he's like, fuck it, I just want to see this painting or whatever. But I also still do not value that, and I think that he should have used that one more time to try and fix the future. Like, the going back to look at a painting is stupid to me. Even if they took that part out, like Vance was saying, like where...
Wait, what if they took out the dystopian part too? What if he was just from the future? And
well, then why would he want to play baseball?
Well, if he's
no,
not...
but if he came back from the future, it's not dystopian, and he just wanted to see a painting that was only around in this one period before he got lost. Would that just be fine if without the whole implication of him not doing something?
I'll be honest with you, that does make it better, because then he has no like complaint about that future then. Like if he's like, my future is a horrible, horrible place, and I came back because I just wanted to see this painting, I'd be like, dude, try and fix the future. But if he's like, no, my future is a really nice place, but we don't have this painting, so I was like, I might as well just go back in time. Like everything's cool up there, like in the future, like that's fine. Like I could see how that's better. But if you're coming from a fucking awful place and you have the means to maybe correct it, I think that you should use your means to attempt to correct it. Aside from just going to look at it.
I think I figured it out. I think I figured out the issue. That's why I like talking about these things. I think the issue is the movie then becomes his movie and not her movie. And she has nothing to do. She has nothing to do with the time travel. Like it loses her story. Like she doesn't have any say in anything.
And like there is like an expository moment of that too, because she says, I now have a purpose for my life, after he says to her, I'll be waiting for you. She's basically, and she's like, I'll make sure that painting's okay for you. So she's basically gone, not only have you hijacked my story of this movie, you've hijacked the story of my entire life, because I'm now going to make it about you.
Yeah, well, that's what the theory is that like he's an evil, kind of not evil, but like he's a dickhead. Manipulative dickhead, because it's theorized that he did the same thing to Auntie Witch.
Yeah,
and then it keeps going and going.
I don't know how much I buy that theory. I do think that something potentially might have happened between them. But I mean, I also read a theory that maybe he knew the artist, because maybe he'd time traveled back at some point when that was made, and maybe they fell in love, and so this painting's really important to him, or has something to do with that love or something. Which I mean, like is as possible as some other things. I don't know why I almost feel more upset at the level of concession that you've had in this session, because the number of times that I've argued some of this stuff with you and you've been so incredibly unreasonable, and it has been blowing my mind. And then you come on here and you're like, and actually, I'm going to concede for a third time to say it. I'm like, where is this coming from? Why didn't we have reasonable conversations about this?
They were very reasonable. Okay.
You just need a moderator.
I think Vance brought out the best in us.
Well, I do think you're buying bats.
I still think the bats thing is a better.
I think that's stupid, but yeah.
It's better than going back to look at a painting. If I am coming from this future, I can't.
Not if that painting is a DNA strand of an RNA strand of the COVID virus. And you're just... Again, that's only 5% of what this movie is. This movie is a weird time travel love triangle story, and that's where the movie loses itself and starts to throw in all these other science fiction tropes at the end of dystopian futures and because it's really just about like when he says wait for like I'll wait for you or whatever. That's so
I'll be waiting for you.
That's young adult novel.
And and what 600 years?
Yeah,
from
that's
now? Do you think?
I was so confused when he said that. I was like, wait, how long is this?
Yeah, dude,
is this future 15 years from now? Like, is he gonna still be the same? It wasn't a powerful ending as it should have been.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the big things that we talked about the first time we saw it too, is like when he's like, I'll be waiting for you. Like, for how long? Like, how long is she supposed to wait and fucking take care of this painting that's dumb? That painting is ugly as fuck too, dude. Like, that painting is not a cool looking painting.
Here's a question. Why don't we ever see him staring at the painting?
because it's always being restored when he visits.
But no, it was
museum.
in the museum.
It was only in the museum with Mako and Auntie Witch, and then she goes back in time again. And then by the time she goes back in time, that time.
Oh, because they end up in the museum, and she's like, "Oh, if you want to see this one, it's being restored. It's actually going to come out in like a couple days."
Yeah,
because
she went back. She went back too far for him to see it. It hasn't been restored yet.
So why doesn't he just stick around?
Because he can't. Because now she knows about time travel. He needs to disappear.
You said that with so much confidence. Like that's why, Vance. That's why.
Well, okay. Oh yeah, we're forgetting that one extra part of the ending where like she wakes up and realizes she's got one more because they went back before.
Yes.
And I thought like maybe she'd go further back so he can get more too. Like once you start being able to like get one life, one ups.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah, because I was like, okay, so that only works for other time leapers. Like if you leap back, then that other person has gotten their leaps back. And if they leap back, then you get yours back. But if you leap back, you don't get your own back.
Yeah.
That would be so confusing. You would just like look at your thing and be like, oh no, someone's leaped back in front of me and I just gained 2 and all my changes don't matter. It adds too many questions to a movie that doesn't need it.
See, dude, like this is what I said when I was like, I love the first 85% of it, and the last 15% of it is a bunch of bullshit.
For me, I think that it deals really well with a lot of those questions. I feel like it acknowledges most of the questions that people have, and if it was able to answer every single one of them explicitly, it would be unwatchable. So I think it does a really good job of balancing out trying to acknowledge some of the questions people might have and not going to an extreme where it's not answering anything or answering too much.
Earlier, I said one of my favorite scenes is when she's running and crying, and it's that tracking shot of her running to try to go back and save him or whatever. I thought that was really beautiful with the music. Like they do a lot of good moment stuff like that.
Yes, I agree. And I think some of those hit pretty hard.
Yeah, no, that tracking scene though, it lasts a long time.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where she's like running through the city to get to the baseball field to have her final kind of conversation with Chiaki to be like, I know that you're time travel. Here's the time walnut. She runs through the entire city, never like you don't see her stop, and it takes forever.
I thought that was effective though. I thought it lasted to that point where like you could have cut it and then they let it run a little longer so you can see the like anxiety and like you felt her like need to actually get there. It reminded me of the chase to like when the bike was gone, you know, like when she realized that bike was missing and she's just booking it.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's what I was feeling sitting on the couch thinking like, oh, this is pulling at my heartstrings. I forgot at like how long they let this run and how effective that is. And Joe just goes, I forgot how long this is on for. She's still crying.
Oh, Joe loved nothing? Okay.
I love so much, Vance. Get out of here. I love trying to save the future from a dystopia as opposed to seeing a fucking painting.
As a fairly realistic pessimist in the long term of things, to me, if you're in some kind of dystopian future, then there's not a lot that one person can do if you don't have a lot of power or influence in the past to be able to change the course of the future in major ways. And so to me, it was like, well, if everything's gone to shit and you think that the world's going to end, why not go back and see a painting? Why not go back and just like do something pleasant, you know? And I know that Joe was like, well, that's the like biggest waste of time ever. And then that's when I brought up the whole thing about, well, okay, we're here in 2020. A lot of people feel like this is the first time in our modern lives that it's felt like a dystopian future. We're seeing things that we've only ever seen in disaster movies. You know, what would you go and do to stop this? And that's when the bag of bats conversation happened.
I'd go to Wuhan and I'd buy a bag of bats.
Not even all of them, just the one bag, and hope you got them.
But that's the thing, Vance, is it's in the attempt. At least I'm trying.
Well, my thing is, when it poses that question, it makes the movie a different movie than it's been.
Yes,
the first.
I agree.
Like now we have this time traveler from a distant dystopian past.
Sure.
Like, and then you have to ask, like, is he the only one that can time travel? Or is there other people from his time that can? And why does this thing exist? Like, it makes you ask questions. Before she fell on something, she could jump through time. I thought she was just going to hit her head or just magically have something in her, like it's in her DNA from her aunt, you know?
Right.
And we come from leapers, and she's the only one that can leap. She really should be the only one that could time leap. She doesn't need to get out of jail free card of him being able to do it, you know?
Yeah, I felt like I think it did confuse things when the aunt is kind of like, a lot of teenage girls can do that. And I was like, what? Everyone in the world at the same time goes, what? While watching this movie.
Yeah, I mean, even though I have like my major problems with how this movie ends, overall, I still really like it.
Yeah.
I still think it's a pleasant, fun movie to watch. But like, once Chiaki stops time and explains stuff is where it falls apart for me.
Explain stuff, but doesn't explain stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I'm a sucker for a dystopian future. Maybe that's it.
I hate when they do the I'm not going to explain stuff thing. And like when he's like walking around through the people like Vanilla Sky style and just like disappearing and she can't find him. And I'm just like, dude, you froze time to talk to her. Just have the conversation. like why are you playing hide and go seek right now? Like just do it. Just have the conversation. We've been waiting the whole movie.
Because it was visually cool, Vance.
Yeah. I'm kind of with Joe with when that drama happened and you see their bike fly up and you see the train and you know she doesn't have any more. If they could have let that moment ride a little longer or like days happen.
A little longer.
No pun intended there. But like if she had to go to school the next day or whatever and deal with that.
Yeah, because we get the implication about it because we get, Chiaki coming in and being like, JK, didn't happen. But by the way, you were real sad, real self-blaming.
Yeah, he
real mopey. Nobody wanted to be around you. Yeah,
he mansplains her emotions to her instead of us just seeing it. He hijacks the movie. That's the problem. He hijacks the movie at the end. I wanted her to have some onus and not just I need to.
Yeah,
I don't know because it's such a good thing with the bike when they called it back. And his friend and that girl and they're about to die and you're just like, wow, this is powerful. And then it just gets undercut with time travel dystopia, which isn't the movie up until that point.
Yeah. Then it becomes all about a stupid, ugly painting.
See, the way Vance made his points were very thoughtful and reasonable.
What are you talking about? I'm going to save the world from coronavirus by buying all the bats at the Wuhan wet market.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah.
I will say that in our initial arguments about this movie, the one that I respected the most that you brought up was the one where you said something about like, if you had the option of having that power to go back in time, you would say no or something.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like too much responsibility and you don't want that responsibility to have like all of that on your shoulders. And I could understand that. I think that's even more noble and reasonable than going back to look at a painting.
I think initially at the beginning of that part of the debate, you did tell me I was a bad person for not going back and trying.
Well, yeah, I do think that.
That sounds more like Joe.
I do think that because it's just like here, I'll liken it to a thing that Vance brought up earlier in this exact podcast. So when they're either of the two that are riding the bike and they're about to hit the train tracks and all of the onlookers do nothing to stop it or save them, if you don't go back in time to try and stop it, you are like those onlookers that are not stopping a horrible thing from happening. It's like they said, I don't know if this is like the exact quote or something, but like it was something about like Nazi Germany that like the people that just stood by and watched it happen were worse than the actual Nazis because they could have done something.
I do remember you making this point.
And they didn't, or it was something like that. Or the people of Germany that just stood by while the Nazis did all this horrible shit are worse because they could have like not elected Hitler or I don't know.
They're not worse, but they're complicit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So you would be complicit in the dystopian future because you didn't go back to try to prevent it.
Assuming I had any power to do so.
You can have the attempt, which is my main argument through this whole time is the trying.
And I do think that, in that any kind of crowd situation, whether it's crowd watching a bike go towards a train or it's people looking on as Nazi rulers coming into power, that there is a diffusal of responsibility. And I think with the diffusal of responsibility is also the diffusal of power to really control the situation as well. Yeah, absolutely. Some of those people could have recognized what's happening, but also you have to think like a bike is careening down a hill, who knows at what speed, and you have to connect, oh shit, train's coming, that equals danger, that person's going to potentially die. You have to make that decision so quickly in order to affect that massive moving object.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, the onlookers with the bike thing don't know that that's happening, but the time traveler guy knows that the dystopian future is about to happen. He knows that this is possibly preventable if he goes back in time and has some kind of solution.
Joe, what if you found out that the reason wasn't something that was preventable for this dystopian future?
I don't know.
Like, because I feel like that's an argument that, while valid, because we given so little information about what caused this thing, that whatever the future is, to happen, it is kind of impossible to say that this guy could do it. I mean, I have more questions to how he came about this power and how he has it, and if anyone else has it, more so than what he's doing with it.
Well, I mean, given the question, what would you do if you could travel through time into the past? Like, everyone, usually, not everyone, but a lot of people answer that they'd go back in time and kill Hitler. Like, that's a common answer.
Right.
That guy had the opportunity to go back in time and kill his version of Hitler, and he goes
well, we don't know, but I'm saying we don't. I'm just saying we don't know what caused whatever their dystopian future was.
Yeah, and it's usually not just one thing.
Yeah, maybe it was just like that's the thing. We don't have enough information of like, oh, he was sent back to solve this thing, or whatever. Like, we don't actually have, and I think it's a problem with the movie to even have that be a thing that needs to be raised.
Yeah,
because the movie is more low personal stakes than global. Like, I think, Joe, you're latched on to like this whole global. You're latched on to something that the movie isn't really about at all.
No, yeah, but if you throw it into the movie, I'm gonna fucking
then I'll latch the fuck onto it.
I'm gonna latch onto it.
I'm saying they threw in something that you latch onto that should not be even in the mix of discussion. It should be more about personal relationships and how your actions affect others on a personal level. And that's, I did not expect this to be the major issue that you guys had with the movie, being a 5-minute clip, basically.
What did you think the major debate was going to be? Because I let you in on, like, we have a huge disagreement about this movie. I'm wondering, like, you watching the movie being like, where is the debate coming from?
I knew it would have something to do with the ending. I didn't know it would be so specific to him not be taking action. I knew it would have something to do with the ending, and I knew it would have something to do with the painting.
Yeah.
Because that's a letdown when he just says, I wanted to see a painting. That's why I'm here. Like, it's a little letdown on any level, unless that's some more meaning.
Yeah.
But, I'm just mad about the guy that gets taken out with the gi, and she doesn't make amends with him.
Yeah, she never fixes that guy over. She never fixes that.
Never fixes it. And I was like, I hope you guys are talking about that. And nope.
No.
You guys
honestly,
don't care about that.
Honestly, that was like a huge afterthought for me. And then you brought it up. I was like, that's a really good point. What about this painting bullshit?
This guy tried to kill her with a fire extinguisher because of what she did. Like there was almost like a murder at the school. And she time travels to save Shaki, and right in that moment, that girl gets hit, and he doesn't use his time travel to go back or anything. Like, he's still holding on to one.
Yeah.
What is he saving that one? When was he planning to use that one?
Well, I think that last one is to go back to his future.
Yeah, but
that was his plan.
Is he ever planning to do it? I don't think he is.
I think
he's talking about the summer. He was talking about what we're going to do in the summer.
I think he was waiting. He was waiting to see the painting.
Dating girls.
He was waiting to see the painting, and the painting hadn't come out yet.
Yes.
How about this? How long do you think he looks at the painting before he's seen enough of it to look?
Yeah, he gets a good 3 head nods in.
Does he get a museum pass? Does he get a museum pass and goes all until the pass runs out?
He reads the plaque, goes back, looks at it again. And then he's like, should I read the plaque again?
Yeah. He's like, I gotta save up to get the headphones so they can get the.
Oh God, dude, that's such a good point. How long does he look at the painting before he's like, all right, I'm bored with this. All right, it's cool.
Yeah,
I get it.
Is he gonna get a camera? Is he gonna
Oh my God, dude, that's fucking hilarious. I'm just picturing have you seen National Lampoon's Vacation?
Yeah.
You know when they're at the Grand Canyon and they're just like. He's like, whoa, look, honey, the Grand Canyon. And he puts his arm around her, and they do a 2 head nod, yeah, all right, let's go. This guy goes all the way back in time to get a 2 head nod pump on the fucking painting that we just discussed for an hour.
How long can you stare at something in a museum?
Yeah, right?
Honestly.
Without looking like a weirdo.
Yeah, maybe he looks at it for an hour, maybe come back. I don't know.
All right, so I think now it's about the time where we crank our amps. Yeah. Out of 11, what we're cranking it to. Who should go first?
I think a guest should always go first.
Vance, where are you cranking? Where are you cranking your amp to on The Girl Who Leapt Through Time? Out of 11.
I was so confused why you guys use amp, and now I realized it midway through this podcast. You guys use amp.
Yeah, man, it's like a guitar amp. What are you cranking the amp to?
Yeah, that's also the title of the show.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're clever.
Yeah. And this is out of 11, right?
Out of 11.
I'm going to go 8. I'm going to go 8 out of 11.
All right.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed the ride. It didn't stick the landing for me.
Yeah.
But it had enough emotional beats that it kind of worked for me. And I don't watch a ton of anime. I've seen bunch of anime, a decent amount of anime movies, but I'm not a avid watcher. But yeah, it was fine.
Cool. Kat?
Oh no, Joe, I think you should go first.
Well, I think that you could probably guess my amp crankage because I as I said several times, the first 85% of this I love, and then it falls apart in the last 15%. So I'm with Vance. I'm cranking it to 8 because I did that first part. I really loved, but dude, that last 15%, I cannot get over.
85% of 11.
Yeah, I don't know. Get out of here. Okay, hold on. Let me do a more specific calculation then. To
4/8.
He's got a calculator out.
All right, here we go.
God.
What
is it?
9.35. All right, so I give this a 9.35 out of 11.
Wow.
Because I did like it. Yeah. It's just there's so many questions about. You know what? Fuck that. I'm going back to 8.
Oh my God! What just happened?
You know what? 8.5. 8.5 out of 11.
Somebody needs to take the talking stick away from you.
Yeah. Maybe you need to up the percentage that you say you don't like from 15 to 20.
Yeah, maybe.
Wait, what percentage is 8.5 out of 11?
Damn it! Stop.
Get that calculator back out.
I didn't sign up for the math podcast.
I'm cranking it to 8.5 and fuck the rest of this.
Kat, as your therapist and as a mediator for you two, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe during this podcast with you? You can let me know. You can, if you blink twice.
Vance,
you blink twice.
Vance, I don't feel safe.
Okay. All right. We're sending someone.
What are you cranking up to, Kat?
I'm going to do something that's an unprecedented thing for me on this podcast.
Oh, don't you fucking do this.
She's done it.
Don't you dare do this. You coward. You coward. I know exactly what you're about to do, and it pisses me off. Go ahead.
I haven't even said anything.
Crank your amp.
This is my first 11.
Yeah, I knew you fucking bullshit.
Vance, I don't feel safe.
Right. I don't normally recommend trial separation, but this is going to have to. The next podcast, you do a lone cat, and then we'll see. We'll slowly phase Joe back.
We'll do podcasts with other people. And see how that works out. And then maybe we'll appreciate each other again.
I can't believe you're giving this an 11. This is unbelievable for me.
You're hijacking my amp right now.
Joe, it's her time to speak. You had your time.
I have the talking stick.
Go ahead.
Thanks. For me, this movie mixes so many things that I love. This movie made me laugh. It made me laugh so much. It made me tear up at times. It made me think, oh my God, that's beautiful, both in like an emotional sense and also looking at some of the animation or some of the backgrounds. We've talked in the past about how Hosoda was an oil painter. He studied oil painting at university. And so some of those backgrounds are just absolutely gorgeous. And I feel like this story the whole way through pulls me emotionally in a direction and it makes me care. But I also hugely enjoy it. And I like talking about it and thinking about it. And I like the unanswered questions and I like all the directions it could go into.
Well, there you go.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well, Vance, want to thank you one more time for coming on the show.
Vance, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's been fun.
If you enjoyed Vance and I's banter, you can check us out on the Boys Watching Girls podcast.
And if you enjoyed Vance with us, we'll definitely have him back.
Oh, great. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It was great. Great discussion. And also if you have any anime movie recommendations that you want to send to us, theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can reach us, or you can just slide into the DMs of our social media.
And please weigh in on this debate. We'd love to hear your ideas, what side of it you fall on, what you disagree with, what do you agree with.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.